All righty. Well, I am here in studio. We're listening together with Astrid Campos, who is an activist against poverty. She's with the California Partnership. And in the intro, you heard Governor Brown proposing to go after mothers, the very people that you heard Josh Romney and President Obama talk about what an important job mothers do. And they are very much targeted along with people with disabilities and the elderly in Governor Brown's proposed budget. But before we talk about the budget, Astrid, your response to the clip we just heard, I mean, this is the discussion in the presidential debate, and contrast that with what's being proposed for California.
It's very interesting. And what was interesting when I heard that, I also thought back to a comment that was mentioned to the governor with in the federal with the welfare reform, and how when a legislator, Senator Leno, discussed how he doesn't feel that President Clinton, when he did welfare reform in '96, had the same economic struggles. So it's interesting to see that it's a full circle. And yes, mothers are definitely under attack, not just in this budget in California, but also nationally when you're looking at such high unemployment rates.
That's right. And the fact that the work that mothers do is not valued one iota. I mean, we hear all this lip service. The President of the United States says it's the toughest job, meaning tougher than being president. Mitt Romney putting his arm around his wife and saying every mom is a working mom. But there seems to be a double standard, doesn't it? That if you are wealthy or you could afford to be able to be a full-time mom, that's okay. But, if you are low income, not okay. When your child is a baby, basically you have to go out and do any job whatsoever outside the home.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is quite sad. When I think of my own mother, I just think she did definitely have the hardest job, not just working full-time, but taking care of her kids full-time.
Yeah.
And it's sad that this becomes also a safety issue. When mothers are outside their home and they're low income and they need to depend on childcare, you're putting kids at risk with inadequate, unsafe childcare. And it's also economically, it doesn't make sense. But I mean, the first point is definitely working mothers, outside or inside the home. It's definitely the hardest job.
Right, and all of the media reports, I'm looking at an article here by Associated Press, California pushing more welfare recipients to work. Keep in mind, we're talking about mainly moms. There's general assistance as well, but a lot of single mothers who are already doing the hardest job in the world, according to the President of the United States. But meanwhile, in California, you've got unemployment at about 11%. So what jobs are they talking about that these mothers must leave their little babies that maybe they're trying to nurse or, raise to go out and get?
They're definitely not talking about full-time living wages type of jobs. They're talking about jobs that don't bring in enough for them to take care of their families. And also, they're not discussing that, the unemployment rate in California is about an 11%, but the unemployment rate within communities of color is way higher than that.
That's right. Yeah, and in low-income communities. And for people out there who are mistakenly thinking these single mothers with children are living the high life on welfare, visiting casinos and liquor stores, which is, the new thing that they're into. A family of three currently receives $638 a month, less rate than 1988. And in 1988, I mean, clearly prices have gone up. You try and even find a place to rent a one room for $638 a month in California. And with the cuts that are being proposed, the a parent with two children would receive $375 a month. A mother with two children, $375 a month, a drop of $263. So no wonder you find women and children increase the largest growing population of the homeless.
Definitely children. I think people are shocked to hear that children that there's such a high number of homeless children. But yeah, I mean, I think number one is when people hear the amount that they receive on CalWorks. I think they're surprised because I think we're used to hearing the perspective from the right wing that these women or families are receiving, these thousands of dollars that they can live the fine life, but they're really struggling even with this money. This money just helps them cover the bare essentials.
Yeah, and barely. I mean, I don't know what I would do. I mean, I was a single mother for a while of one child. And the idea that with two children that you could be trying to basically live in Los Angeles County or anywhere in California on $375 a month is unconscionable. Now, let's get down to some of the statistics here and some of the numbers in terms of the cuts that are being proposed. And there's still time, right? Because the deadline is Friday, and the Democrats thus far have been kind of holding on and not agreeing with Governor Brown to these cuts. So I just want people to know that right now that there's still something people can do. Is that right, Astrid?
Yes, there definitely is. The deadline is the 15th for the legislature to pass a budget or pass it over to the governor. And the Assembly Democrats have been staying very strong. And the Senate has been vocal, but their actions haven't really said the same thing. So our main focus on what we've been doing statewide is making sure that we're getting enough calls, visits into the Senate Dems, asking Steinberg, Leno to really stand up for families across the state and asking them to reject the cuts.
Right. Okay. And let us talk a bit then about some of the cuts. Let's go to the in-home supportive services. That is home care. That is so vital. I don't know what my mom would have done. I mean, she May 12th would have been a year since she passed away, but in her final years, she likely would have gone a lot sooner if it weren't for home care. So tell us about these cuts in home care.
Well, we're looking at home care, in-home supported services in California. They're proposing a 7% cut to this program, and that is not taking into account the 20% cut that went in last year. You're looking at services that people the most vulnerable depend on. And what the governor is proposing is to eliminate domestic services, the number one thing that these individuals on in-home support services depend on.
And who are the people getting in-home support services?
It is, the people on it are people with disabilities. It could be also seniors and very low income that you need, and not just low income, but you need to, it's like a medical necessity to have it. And it's just, people don't understand that a lot of these people with disabilities, and the disability community comes out and says this, that people will die with these cuts because a lot of them refuse to be, because the other alternative is to be institutionalized. And one is that's not the best for the individual. There, like you said, it really does, quality of life is so much different when they get to interact and live within their community than to be institutionalized. And then second, it's more expensive for the state. So
it's way more expensive.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we're really talking then about people with disabilities and older people who need this support in order to stay alive. I hope our listeners are really getting that. In order to stay alive right now, given the cuts that happened before and these proposed cuts, a 27% cut in home care. Lives are going to be lost. This is tragic.
Extremely tragic. And there has been some activism there, and it's in the courts right now, that 20% to fight it, because it's definitely, it's a life and death issue. And I think a lot of us don't understand, but I think anyone who's ever had someone in their family that's dependent on this, they know that this is the individual's lifeline.
Yeah, and we talked earlier about the cuts in welfare. Cal works because under the Clinton administration, welfare as a right was taken away and it became a workfare program, what some people, the welfare warriors in Wisconsin, calls a kind of a slave fare, where mothers are forced to go out and sometimes work for no wage at all, or work below the minimum wage or at the minimum wage